The EpiPen lay broken on the marble floor. No witnesses. No help coming. Only Isabella, her forbidden kiss, and a split-second decision that would shatter both their worlds. "Sir, don't talk," she commanded, pressing her virgin lips against billionaire Maxwell Reed's mouth, forcing life-saving medication down his closing throat. 3 minutes earlier, she'd been just another invisible maid. Now, she was the only thing standing between the most powerful CEO in Manhattan and death. Would you risk everything to save someone's life, even if it meant crossing boundaries you never thought you would? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Isabella Martinez was never meant to be noticed. 24, she moved through the Reed mansion like a ghost, dusting priceless artifacts and polishing marble floors while remaining invisible to its owner. But beneath her maid's uniform beat the heart of a born healer. Every night after her 12-hour shift, she studied medical textbooks until her eyes burned, determined to finish the nursing degree she'd abandoned when her mother's illness devoured their savings. The same hands that scrubbed toilets could recite every major artery in the human body and calculate medication dosages with perfect precision, skills learned during the 3 years she spent as her mother's caretaker before cancer claimed her. Maxwell Reed had built Reed Enterprises from nothing, transforming a small tech startup into a billion-dollar empire before his 30th birthday. Business magazines called him brilliant, ruthless, and impenetrable. What they didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that the man who negotiated mergers that made grown men weep carried an EpiPen everywhere. A severe allergy to shellfish threatened his carefully constructed image of invulnerability. One microscopic trace could kill him in minutes, a weakness he guarded more fiercely than his company's secrets. "Weakness is blood in the water," his father had taught him before abandoning their family. "And business is full of sharks." Maxwell had learned the lesson too well. The only person who knew his secret was Victoria Sinclair, his ex-fiancée and daughter of his father's former business partner. Their engagement had been strategic, a merger of families more than hearts, until she left him for James Harrington, his most dangerous competitor. Now Victoria was back in New York, claiming she wanted to mend fences while her predatory smile suggested otherwise. Isabella had noticed things about Maxwell that others missed. How he inspected every meal before eating. The slight bulge of the EpiPen in his suit pocket. The way his eyes scanned restaurant kitchens. She noticed because paying attention kept people alive, a lesson learned at her mother's bedside. But noticing Maxwell Reed was dangerous territory for a maid with secrets of her own and a family depending on her income. Isabella first realized something was wrong when Maxwell began interviewing new personal chefs. Previous chef Marco had worked for him for 7 years and knew exactly how to prepare food safely. But after Victoria Sinclair reappeared in Maxwell's life, Marco was suddenly gone. "He's bringing in someone Victoria recommended," whispered Greta, the head housekeeper. "That woman's been slithering around here all week." Isabella felt a chill. Just yesterday, she'd overheard Victoria on the phone in the garden. Once the investors see his weakness, they'll pull out faster than rats from a sinking ship. That evening, Isabella found Maxwell's emergency medication in the bathroom trash, expired. She purchased a replacement with her own money and silently placed it in his medicine cabinet. He never mentioned it. 3 days later, Maxwell actually looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. She'd left a book on his nightstand, The Art of War, with notes in the margins challenging some of Sun Tzu's assertions. "You read this?" he asked, holding up the book as she changed his sheets. "I apologize, sir. I found it in the library, and your criticisms of his 3rd chapter are interesting." Something shifted in his eyes. "What else do you read?" That brief conversation evolved into books appearing on her cleaning cart, business strategy, philosophy, even medical texts, with notes asking her opinion. They never spoke of it directly. The books became their secret language. Meanwhile, Victoria circled closer. Isabella watched her slip something into Maxwell's desk drawer during a dinner party, photographs that made his face turn to stone when he discovered them later. "I need you to work the private dinner tomorrow night," Greta told Isabella. Victoria insisted the regular staff be dismissed. Why would she? Don't ask questions. Just be invisible and do your job. That night, Isabella couldn't sleep. She researched the new chef Victoria had recommended and discovered he'd been fired from 3 restaurants for cross-contamination issues. When she tried to warn Maxwell the next morning, his office door remained closed as Victoria emerged, smiling like a satisfied cat. "He's very busy," Victoria said, eyes flicking dismissively over Isabella's uniform. "Important dinner tonight. Some things are better left to those who understand his world, don't you think?" Isabella clutched her cleaning supplies tighter. "Of course, Miss Sinclair." But as she turned away, she slipped Maxwell's spare EpiPen into her pocket. Something wasn't right, and invisible or not, she wouldn't leave him unprotected. Private dining room gleamed with candlelight as Isabella served the first course, her white gloves hiding the trembling of her fingers. Maxwell sat at the head of the table, surrounded by 5 potential investors. Victoria hovered at his right, her red dress matching her lips as she whispered in his ear. "The lobster bisque is divine, Maxwell," Victoria purred. "Chef Andre's specialty." Isabella froze. "Lobster." She watched Maxwell hesitate, then take a spoonful after Victoria assured him it was crab, not lobster. 3 minutes later, his hand went to his throat. "Are you all right, Mr. Reed?" asked one of the investors. "Just water," Maxwell managed, his voice already constricting. His fingers fumbled for his pocket, finding nothing. Isabella moved instantly, setting down her serving tray. "Excuse me, Mr. Reed needs air." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "He's fine." "Continue serving." But Maxwell wasn't fine. His lips were swelling, face flushing crimson as he struggled to breathe. The investors murmured in confusion as he stumbled to his feet. Isabella caught him as he staggered into the hallway, collapsing against the wall. His eyes met hers, wide with the knowledge of what was happening. "EpiPen," he gasped, hands clawing at his pockets. Isabella pulled the auto-injector from her dress, but as she removed the cap, the mechanism jammed. The needle wouldn't deploy. Maxwell's eyes were bulging now, his airway nearly closed. "Oh God," she whispered, mind racing through her medical training. The medication itself was still viable, but without the injection. In that moment, Isabella made a decision that would change everything. She broke open the EpiPen, extracted the epinephrine with the syringe she kept in her emergency kit, and placed the liquid under her tongue. Then she cupped Maxwell's face between her hands. "Sir, don't talk," she whispered and pressed her lips to his. She had never kissed anyone before. Had never imagined her first kiss would be like this, transferring life-saving medication sublingually to her billionaire boss as he fought for breath. His lips were cold, then warm as the epinephrine entered his system. His hands gripped her shoulders, whether to push her away or pull her closer, she couldn't tell. When she finally pulled back, his breathing had steadied, but something in his eyes had fundamentally changed. 3 days passed before Isabella saw Maxwell again. 3 days of wondering if she'd be fired, arrested for assault, or worse. When Greta summoned her to his study, Isabella's hands trembled so badly she had to clench them behind her back. Maxwell stood at the window, silhouetted against Manhattan's skyline. He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. "You saved my life," he said finally. "Anyone would have." "No." His voice cut through her modesty. "Anyone would have called 911 and watched me die before the ambulance arrived. You broke open an EpiPen and administered epinephrine through unconventional means." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I apologize for the inappropriate." "Stop apologizing for saving my life." He stepped closer, studying her face. "Where did you learn that technique?" Question hung between them. Isabella hesitated, then decided on truth. "My mother had pulmonary fibrosis. Sometimes her airways would spasm and she couldn't swallow her medication. I researched alternative delivery methods." She swallowed hard. "I was her caretaker for 3 years before she died." Something shifted in Maxwell's eyes, recognition perhaps. Understanding. That's why you're working here instead of finishing your nursing degree. Isabella's head snapped up. How did you? I make it my business to know everything about the people around me. He gestured to a chair. Say it, please. For the next hour they talked, really talked. About her mother's illness that drained their savings. About his allergy that he'd hidden since childhood when his father called him defective. About Victoria's suspicious behavior and the tampered EpiPen. She wanted you to have an attack, Isabella said quietly. But I don't think she meant to kill you. Just embarrass you in front of the investors. Maxwell's jaw tightened. Weakness is blood in the water. Being human isn't weakness, Mr. Reed. His eyes met hers, startled by her boldness. The next morning, an envelope appeared on Isabella's bed containing full scholarship papers for the nursing program she'd abandoned. She marched straight to his office and placed them on his desk. I can't accept this. It's not charity. It's investment in talent. I won't be bought, Mr. Reed. For the first time, she saw him smile, a genuine smile that transformed his face. I'm beginning to understand that. That evening, she found a medical textbook on her cleaning cart with a note. Not a gift. A loan. Your insights on Chapter 7 would be valuable to me. It was the beginning of something neither of them had names for yet, something that terrified and exhilarated them both. You want me to what? Isabella stared at the embossed invitation in disbelief. Accompany me to the Children's Hospital benefit, Maxwell repeated, his expression betraying nothing. Victoria will be there with Harrington. I need someone I can trust. Trust. The word hung between them, weighted with meaning. I'm your maid, Mr. Reed. I don't belong at galas. After saving my life, I think we're beyond job descriptions. His eyes held hers. Unless you're afraid? The challenge in his voice decided her. The night of the event, Isabella barely recognized herself in the mirror. The midnight blue gown Maxwell had sent fit perfectly, making her wonder how he knew her measurements. Her dark hair, usually hidden beneath a cap, cascaded down her back in soft waves. Whispers followed them as they entered the ballroom. Maxwell Reed never brought dates to these functions, yet here he was with an unknown woman on his arm. Who is she? Question rippled through the crowd. Victoria materialized before them, her smile brittle. Maxwell, darling. How recovered you look. Her gaze slid to Isabella, dismissive. And you brought your help. How progressive. Actually, Maxwell's hand pressed against Isabella's lower back. Ms. Martinez is my guest. She's studying to become a nurse. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Is she? And what hospital would employ someone with her background? Any hospital would be fortunate to have her, Maxwell replied coolly. Victoria leaned closer, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. Does she know about the photos? About what you really are? Before Maxwell could respond, James Harrington appeared, his predatory smile matching Victoria's. Reed. Heard you had a little medical episode at your last investor dinner. Allergies, was it? Shame if that information became public. Isabella felt Maxwell stiffen beside her. In that moment, something protective and fierce rose within her. Mr. Harrington, she said, voice clear and carrying, as a medical professional, I find it disturbing that you'd weaponize someone's health condition. Perhaps your investors should question what other ethical lines you're willing to cross. The room fell silent. Maxwell's hand found hers, squeezing gently. The morning after the event, Isabella's photo was splashed across every tabloid in New York. Reed's secret lover, from maid to mistress? The stories beneath were worse, insinuating she'd slept her way into Maxwell's favor, claiming she had a criminal past, suggesting she was blackmailing him over his medical condition. I'm so sorry, Maxwell said when he found her packing her uniform. Victoria did this. It doesn't matter who did it. Isabella's hand shook as she folded her apron. I can't stay here now. I'll fix this. My PR team can't fix my reputation. Or the fact that every person in that ballroom now sees me as your charity case or your conquest. The word tasted bitter. Before Maxwell could respond, Greta appeared at the door. Mr. Reed, security needs to see you immediately. There's been a theft. In the security office, the head of security played surveillance footage showing someone who looked remarkably like Isabella entering Maxwell's private safe, removing documents and what appeared to be jewelry. That's not possible, Maxwell said, but doubt flickered across his face. When was this? Last night, while you were at the event. I was at the event with her. The security chief looked uncomfortable. The timestamp shows 9:47 p.m. According to staff, Ms. Martinez left the event at 9:30 claiming illness and returned to the mansion alone. Isabella felt the blood drain from her face. I did come back early, but I went straight to my room. I never... There's more, sir, the security chief interrupted, sliding forward a small velvet pouch. These were found in Ms. Martinez's quarters during routine cleaning. Inside were Maxwell's mother's diamond earrings and a flash drive containing proprietary Reed Enterprises documents. Isabella stared in horror. This is insane. I would never... Isabella. Maxwell's voice had gone cold, his eyes shuttered. Did Victoria approach you? Offer you money? What? No. How can you even ask me that? But she saw it in his eyes, that flicker of doubt. After everything, he still believed she could betray him. Get out, he said quietly. Maxwell, please. Mr. Reed, he corrected, his voice like ice. Security will escort you out. Be grateful I'm not pressing charges. As security led her away, Isabella caught a glimpse of Victoria watching from the shadows, a triumphant smile playing on her red lips. Sometimes the people who see us most clearly are those we never thought to look at. Isabella saw Maxwell, not the billionaire, not the CEO, but the man with fears and vulnerabilities like anyone else. And for a brief moment, Maxwell saw Isabella, not the maid, but the brilliant, compassionate woman who valued life above propriety. True intimacy isn't found in grand gestures or passionate declarations. It's born in those rare moments when we're stripped of pretense, when our masks fall away and we stand exposed in our raw humanity. When Isabella pressed her lips to Maxwell's to save his life, she gave him more than medicine. She gave him the gift of being seen for who he truly was. Trust, once broken, leaves scars that run deeper than any physical wound. But sometimes those scars become maps leading us back to what matters most, if only we have the courage to follow them. 3 weeks after Isabella's dismissal, Maxwell sat alone in his study, staring at the medical textbook she'd annotated. Something about the theft hadn't added up from the beginning. Isabella, who'd refused a full scholarship on principle, stealing jewelry? The woman who'd risked everything to save his life, betraying him for money? His phone rang, his head of cybersecurity. Sir, we found something. The surveillance footage was doctored. Facial recognition software was used to superimpose Ms. Martinez's features over someone else's. Based on height and gait analysis, we believe it was Ms. Sinclair. Maxwell's blood ran cold. And the items in Isabella's room? Planted, obviously. But there's more. We've been investigating Ms. Sinclair as you requested. She's been working with Harrington for months. They're planning a hostile takeover of Reed Enterprises using your medical condition to spook investors. Maxwell ended the call and sat motionless, shame washing over him. He doubted the one person who had never given him reason to doubt. Finding Isabella proved challenging. She disappeared completely. Finally, his investigator located her working double shifts at St. Mary's Hospital in the Bronx, volunteering in the free clinic while taking night classes to finish her nursing degree. When Maxwell walked into the clinic waiting room, Isabella froze mid-sentence, clipboard clutched to her chest. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice barely audible. Being the biggest fool in New York, he replied, aware of curious eyes watching them. Can we talk privately? In a small break room, Maxwell laid out everything. The doctored footage, Victoria's scheme, his unforgivable mistake in doubting her. I don't expect your forgiveness, he finished. But you deserve the truth and an apology that I'll spend a lifetime trying to make good on. Isabella studied him, her expression unreadable. Why did you really come here, Maxwell? Because I miss the only person who's ever seen me as human instead of a balance sheet. Because that virgin kiss that saved my life also woke something in me I didn't know was sleeping. He stepped closer. Because I'm terrified that I've lost the chance to discover what we might have been. Isabella's eyes glistened. And Victoria? Facing criminal charges along with Harrington. It's over. And us, she whispered. What are we? That, Maxwell said softly, is entirely up to you. 6 months later, Isabella stood on the stage of her nursing school graduation, accepting her diploma with tears in her eyes. In the audience, Maxwell watched with undisguised pride, no longer hiding his vulnerability or his feelings. That evening, as they celebrated at his penthouse, now their home, this time, when their lips met, it wasn't about survival but celebration, of second chances, of trust rebuilt, of love found in the most unexpected circumstances. Sometimes a single moment changes everything. Sometimes a kiss meant to save a life ends up saving 2 souls instead. And sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from what we think are endings. Has someone's vulnerability ever made you see them differently? Like this video if you believe that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from the most frightening moments, and subscribe for more stories that show how love finds us in the most unexpected circumstances.